Hello everyone, I'm Đức Trung with VTV International. This is the English Bulletin VTV News coming to you live from Hanoi. First, let's get you up to date with the headlines. Vietnamese and Azerbaijan presidents hold talks in capital city Hanoi. Lý Sơn people preserve Vietnam's legal and historical sovereignty documents. And later, a TPP ministerial meeting opens in Singapore. On to the first update of the hour. President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev is paying a working visit to Vietnam from May the 18th to the 20th at the invitation of President Trương Tấn Sang. At the talks with President Sang, he made clear Vietnam's stance on expanding relations with the Eurasian country as a major partner in Southern Caucasus.
During the meeting, the two leaders agreed to lift annual two-way trade from the modest existing $400 million to $1 billion in the coming years. To this end, economic units and businesses will facilitate regular visits, seeking ways to expand mutual market shares. Regarding bilateral oil and gas links as a strategic priority in the long run, Aliyev vowed to provide Vietnam good legal assistance, making it easier for the country to invest and buy oil from his country and broaden their cooperation. Turning attention to the ongoing tension in the East Sea, both were absolutely unanimous on the peaceful settlements of any conflict in line with international law and the UN Charter.
Now, yesterday, May the 19th, marked the 124th birthday of the late President Ho Chi Minh. A number of activities were held both in and out of the country to celebrate the late President's birthday. National leaders and 12,000 Vietnamese people gathered at President Ho Chi Minh's mausoleum yesterday to lay a wreath in honor of the late leader. The overseas Vietnamese community in Laos also paid tribute to President Ho Chi Minh at the President Ho Chi Minh Memorial Complex in Kham Muan Province in Laos yesterday. Vietnamese expatriates in Thailand gathered at places where President Ho Chi Minh used to live in Thailand to commemorate President Ho Chi Minh and study more about his life and contributions to Vietnam's revolutionary cause. Vietnamese history is full of patriotic wars to protect the country's sovereignty and independence. And on the occasion of celebrating the 124th birthday of the late President Ho Chi Minh, lessons from the most respected president are told to encourage patriotism while the country's sovereignty in the East Sea is being challenged.
A picture of President Ho Chi Minh talking with the Vietnamese pioneer troop before entering to take the capital in 1954 was engraved at the front gate of the Hung King's Temple in Phu Thọ Province. In this event, the late president delivered his well-known message, "The Hung Kings fought our nation. Our mission is to protect it." Major General Nguyễn Hiền had the privilege to be at this event.
The late president shared that we inherited a patriotic tradition in our long-lasting history. From centuries ago to the most recent era of Angkor Ho, Vietnamese people have always done their utmost to protect the country's sovereignty. In his words, President Ho Chi Minh inspired younger generations to continue our patriotic history of over 4,000 years of building a united and independent country.
Geographically, Vietnam is a gateway between the East Sea and larger area of the Southeast Asia. Thus, the nation's sovereignty has often been threatened. Vietnamese people always respect peace in the area and will protect the country's sovereignty by peaceful means, given the current rising tension in the East Sea.
The lesson from late President Ho Chi Minh still holds a strong inspiration, especially for younger generations during this time. I have a concrete belief that Vietnamese people will do their best to protect the country in a peaceful way.
The lesson of the late President Ho Chi Minh has proven its timeless value, as each Vietnamese seems to be well aware of the mission to protect the country especially when the territorial tension is raised in the East Sea between Vietnam and China.
Moving on now to other news, the 7th session of the National Assembly opens this morning, Tuesday, May the 20th. This was announced at the press conference held yesterday. During this session, National Assembly deputies will spend a large amount of time on debating future laws, reporting and discussing the recent tension in the East Sea. After the opening ceremony in the morning, National Assembly deputies in the afternoon session will talk about solutions regarding China's illegal placement of its oil rig in Vietnam's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf. The head of the National Assembly office said the East Sea issue should be resolved by peaceful means and according to international law. Also, during this 7th session, National Assembly will consider and approve 11 laws, 3 resolutions, and comment on 16 bills. In addition, 2.5 days will be spent for Q&A sessions with government members. Coming up next are some updates on the area near where China illegally placed its drilling oil rig in Vietnam's exclusive economic zone. Let's now take a close look at the situation.
From Coast Guard Ship 8003, we can see there is always a strong force of Chinese ships participating in activities to prevent and even ready to collide with Vietnamese law enforcement ships as they attempt to broadcast announcements demanding Haiyan CO 981 leaves Vietnam's exclusive economic zones and continental shelf. As of May 13th, China had retained about 90 ships around their illegally placed oil rig. Several approached and fired water cannons when Vietnamese ships came closer. Chinese steel-hulled fishing boats continue to threaten wooden Vietnamese vessels.
For me, as a captain, I am absolutely against provocative actions. But when our Coast Guard forces try to complete our duty by approaching them and telling them to remove the illegal oil rig out of Vietnam's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf, the Chinese ships are aggressive, but we refrain ourselves from any collision.
Despite the aggression of the Chinese ships, Vietnamese law enforcement forces in the Paracel Islands still remain undeterred and resilient as they continue exercising a strong message underlining the country's sovereignty rights.
The Vietnam Coast Guard, who are working in the area where China illegally placed their oil rig, have received much support from government agencies, Vietnamese overseas enterprises, and people in the mainland. Over $500,000 has been raised, while Petro Vietnam and Military Zone No. 7 have provided high-speed boats to the Coast Guard, while Vietcom Bank donated a loud hailer. Those gifts are considered great encouragement for the Vietnam Coast Guard as it continues their mission of protecting the national sovereignty at sea. Now, for the inhabitants of Lý Sơn district, the Paracel Islands have been their traditional fishing grounds for generations, and they have preserved legal and historical documents to prove Vietnam's sovereignty over the Paracel Islands. Let's meet them in the following report.
Duyen is the 5th-generation descendant of the Navy commanders Phạm Hữu Nhật, the first to receive King Minh Mang's order to lay a sovereign stone on the Paracel Islands, with 40 years of collecting documents and evidence proving Vietnam's sovereignties over the Hoàng Sa Paracel and Trường Sa or Spratly archipelagos. Mr. Duyen now owns a national treasure.
The commanding orders in my house were granted by the king to any Navy soldiers sent to Paracel Islands. In Lý Sơn, there are many families possessing this order, so this is proof of our ancestors' duty in the Paracel Islands.
As for a fisherman like Ching, he was the one who discovered a stone stele with gnome script while he was fishing offshore in 1981. That script later was translated and understood as evidence proving Vietnam's sovereignty over Paracel Islands.
Tôi bắt đầu với là ghi chép lại.
We tried to translate the script. It said that the stone still was built long ago, just 1 year after Emperor Zalong was ascended to the throne. We feel so proud that our ancestors in Lý Sơn Island also fought to protect Vietnamese sovereignty.
Despite the illegal Chinese placement of an oil rig in Vietnam's exclusive economic zone, fishermen from Lý Sơn Islands are still determined to go fishing offshore and to protect Paracel Islands, for which their ancestors died to protect.
Những con tàu của ngư dân chúng tôi.
The presence of our fishing boats with Vietnamese national flags flying in the Paracel and Spratly archipelagos will contribute to confirming Vietnam's sovereignty there. We can't live without Paracel Islands, the land our fathers died for.
The historical evidence proving that Paracel Islands belong to Vietnam are valuable documents for Lý Sơn and Vietnam in general, and they will be preserved for future generations.
The Hoàng Sa and Trường Sa Islands, also known as the Paracel and Spratly archipelagos, have a special meaning to Vietnamese people whenever they think of their country's sacred waters. Some even call these islands their homes, even though they were not born or raised here. The following report will tell the story of the people who show their love for the islands through singing. Becoming a singer is a dream for many people, and for Anh Đào, it is the most honorable and proud achievement in her life to be known as the singer of the Spratly Islands. Anh Đào first came to the Spratly Islands in 1984 and then returned in 1988 when islanders were still coping with many difficulties. Back then, she was the one and only singer who sang about the islands and about her love for the land.
I would sing whenever I was on the island, even though sometimes there were few audience members or soldiers in attendance. That's when we put all our worries and difficulties aside. I could never forget when I had to leave. We held hands and hugged for so long.
Now, a younger generation of artists are visiting the islands with their youth and enthusiasm, willing to sing for their country's beautiful islands. Their feelings and thoughts are not so different from the first singers to arrive here.
We sang to celebrate the spirit and contributions of the soldiers and islanders. I'm proud that my singing can bring happiness to the people here.
These young singers are continuing a tradition of artists who sing from their heart for the nation's Paracels and Spratly Islands. While other people in Nha Trang often go to the beach in the afternoon, this singer comes here to revisit her memories of countless afternoons on the Spratly Islands, where she shares her love through singing. In the latter half of our bulletin, Vietnam's delegation attends a ministerial meeting on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, in Singapore. And an American art troupe brings Broadway musicals to Vietnam. That's coming up next on BTV News after a short break. Stay tuned.
Exotic Vietnam is an intriguing blend of many charms. This land is where all manner of stunning landscapes await like a visual feast, rivaled only by the beauty of its people and their abundantly rich tradition and culture. Here is where you can relive the past in richest color or live it up in the bright lights of the big city. With so much more to offer, Vietnam is simply unforgettable.
Welcome back to BTV News live from Hanoi. A high-ranking delegation of the Vietnam People's Army led by Defense Minister General Phùng Quang Thanh is attending the 8th ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting, or ADMM-8, in Myanmar from May the 19th to 21st. ASEAN defense ministers will discuss measures to enhance defense cooperation and maintain security in the region. They will also have meetings with the Chinese defense minister. Attending the ADMM8, Vietnam is to confirm its active, proactive, and responsible participation in cooperative fields within the framework of the meeting and to continue fighting to protect the national and regional interests on the basis of international law and conventions. A ministerial meeting of 12 countries involved in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, opened in Singapore on Monday morning. Vietnam's delegation to this meeting is headed by Trần Quốc Khánh, Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade. Prior to the ministerial meeting, the chief negotiators and key experts from the 12 TPP members already discussed issues in such areas as goods and services market, access packages, intellectual property, investment, the environment, state-owned enterprises, and financial services. These issues will be further discussed at plenary and bilateral meetings held within the framework of this ministerial meeting. Notably, Japan will also hold a bilateral meeting with the U.S., as both still cannot agree on issues regarding agro-produce and automobile products. As the former imperial capital of Vietnam, Hue City has been one of the country's main cultural and historical centers. Among the many beautiful historical sites, Hue Citadel is the most outstanding. And in a bid to preserve its beauty, restoration and preservation works have been implemented by domestic and international organizations, and the German Conservation and Education Project, or GCREP, has helped Vietnam enormously in the repair and restoration of part of the citadel.
Hue's imperial city was built by the emperors of the Nguyen dynasty and was inspired by both ancient Oriental and local architecture. However, many parts of this structure has been damaged or even destroyed. Only a third of the original buildings survived 3 decades of war in Vietnam. Thus, a number of projects has been carried out by GCREP in the past 10 years to help restore the original architecture. The restoration project on the Ta Vu building on Mandarin's House was the 4th successful project in Hue implemented by GCREP after they worked on the An Định Palace, the Đức Mausoleum, and the highest celestial temple in Hue Citadel. Works on the project includes treatment for corrosion of the iron girders, filling the gaps in plaster with appropriate materials, and retouching of the paintings to restore the authentic beauty of the interior decoration.
Usually they are very damaged by the climate, some also by the war, and there was no maintenance before. So the temple what we restored has no roof, for example, and of course we make a new roof and everything. So after more than 100 years, the most buildings, they need some conservation and restoration when you want to preserve them for the future.
Today, Ta Vu serves as an ideal historical showroom for the traditional values of Hue heritage, with a permanent exhibition featuring an overview of the life and work of the Nguyen dynasty and their royal court.
The aim of this project, this exhibition, was to provide to the visitors a compact documentation about the life in the imperial city, because we thought this is really missing. I mean, there is nothing to explain and to give some indication.
Prior to the Ta Vu building, Chief Restorer Andrea Toffer worked on the highest celestial temple, or Tối Linh Tự, in the citadel. And the great support by GCREP experts is greatly appreciated by the Vietnamese colleagues.
German experts have great knowledge and strength in restoring details on solid materials. They have helped us restore the aesthetic beauty of the interior decoration in the field buildings of the citadel. Furthermore, they have helped us train young workers as part of the project. These workers now have extensive knowledge of heritage restoration.
During the project, local trainees in heritage restoration also received skillful guidance from the German experts. They were given certifications at the end of the project as an outcome for the project in the field of heritage conservation through on-the-job training program.
Tối Linh Tự Temple was built in 1936, and after 7 decades, the site was heavily damaged by insects and moles. With the help from GCREP, a team of 6 workers had to work 15,000 hours or 11 months to restore the site to these conditions.
Marked by many porcelain mosaic inlaid ornaments inside and outside, Tối Linh Tự Temple restoration work required both skillful expertise and diligent work. But thanks to the help from German experts, the temple has been restored to its previous glory, and knowledge acquired by heritage restoration workers through this project will surely benefit future projects to restore Hue Citadel's architecture in the future.
An art troupe featuring Bingham Young University's student performers brought a stunning musical show to Hanoi audiences as part of their Southeast Asian tour, some 20 years after their first visit to Vietnam. This time, the young ambassadors presented their newest show, Heart Songs, Melodies of Love, a 90-minute performance full of bright costumes, creative choreography, and favorite Broadway and radio tunes. VTV reporter Ming Chang has the story.
In the new 90-minute musical revue, audiences had a chance to see 20 of BYU's finest singers, actors, and dancers performing some of the most popular musical numbers from Broadway hits, such as Singing in the Rain, Crazy for You, Brotherly Modern Millie, Into the Woods, Dreamgirls, and Brotherhood of Man.
Being a member of the Young Ambassadors has always been a dream and a passion for me to do, and so I'm grateful for the opportunity I have to be part of this great group.
This is my 4th year at BYU, and this is my first year as a Young Ambassador.
Working with these young students every year keeps me young and excited about life. Our goal is to make every effort to make friends with music and dance as our medium of communication. We want to make friends with people all over the world. And I have great hopes for this new generation of people who are rising up and preparing to carry the world through the 21st century.
Audiences will be taking a trip back in time as they revisit the classics that changed the music industry forever, including songs from George Gershwin, Rodgers and Hammerstein, and Benny Goodman, and a journey through the music of today featuring popular artists like Michael Jackson, The Beatles, Whitney Houston, and Michael Bublé. Performers also surprised Vietnamese audiences with their final song, Trống Cơm, which they practiced only several days before the performance.
I was impressed by their youth and energy they put in every performance. I like the song about love of mankind the most.
I loved it. I think it's a great message that we can love each other no matter where we are, no matter who we are. We all need love. So I thought it was a great message.
The Young Ambassadors Ensemble is produced by the School of Music in the College of Fine Arts and Communications at Brigham Young University, Utah in the U.S. Vietnam is BYU Young Ambassadors' final stop in their Southeast Asian Tour 2014, which includes Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam.
Up next, let's take a look at a few online articles about Vietnam.
Trung Nguyen Coffee Corporation has today officially launched an online coffee hypermarket for the first time in Vietnam at cafe.net.vn. The online coffee hypermarket is the most effective tool channel to supply all products and articles related to coffee and are particularly suited to the trend of shopping of young customers. This is the beginning stage of the business model of the Trung Nguyen Coffee Hypermarket, and is gradually being improved and continues to be developed to meet the diverse needs of consumers. According to Forbes, Dong Nguyen, the creator of the famous Flappy Bird mobile phone game, revealed that Flappy Bird will return to the app market this August. complete with multiplayer functionality and changes that will make it less addictive. Nguyễn made headlines this February when he abruptly announced he was deleting the #1 mobile game in the world, which according to him was bringing in $50,000 a day to this one-man studio. Hanoi-based Vietnam National Museum of Nature has opened a new exhibition hall on evolution, displaying a wide range of specimens that recorded life on Earth over the past 4 billion years. The exhibition covers nearly 300 square meters on the first floor of the museum, believed to be the best of its kind in Vietnam, with a collection of about 40,000 specimens, including 400 of animals, thousands of reptiles, fishes, snails, insects, and flora. Among the objects on display are ocean sunfish, a 18.5-ton whale, a fossilized crocodile skull, and other rare species such as elephants, tigers, and bears. The exhibition is open at 18 Hoàng Quốc Việt Street, Cầu Giấy District in Hanoi.
A 54,000 deadweight ton northern genius ship of Nippon Yusen Kaisha carrier to Japan successfully docked the Saigon Premier Container Terminal, or SPCT, through the Soi Rap Channel on Saturday. This is the largest ever ship docked at the terminal. After this ship, the SPCT has signed contract to allow 5 large-size vessels to dock at the terminal. Using the Soi Rap Channel has reduced a travel distance of 20 kilometers from the sea to the port of Ho Chi Minh City. By using the Soi Rap Channel, the 54,000 deadweight ton vessel has estimated to save cost by at least $500,000 per year. Petro Vietnam Gas and Vietinbank were named in the Forbes magazine's Global 2000, a list of the world's largest and most powerful public limited companies. In a report released on May the 7th, the U.S. Business magazine ranked Petro Vietnam Gas, which has $3.1 billion in revenues and $7.5 billion in market value, in the 1,651st position. Vietinbank stands at 1,854 with $2.3 billion in revenues and $2.9 million in market value. This year, the Global 2000 companies hail from 62 countries. In total, they ranked in revenues of $38 trillion and profits of $3 trillion. They had assets worth $161 trillion and a market value of $44 trillion. Citigroup President Chen Kim-chung said, Northern Australia has ideal growing conditions for dragon fruits, and the company is pouring an investment of $100 million in the project. Australia's Northern Territory Minister for Mines and Energy said the project is expected to provide jobs for an estimated 500 laborers. It will bring an economic benefits to both sides, he added. Unlike small farms Citi is developing in Vietnam, it plans large-scale commercial farms to support supply chains, and the Northern Territory is a super place for them to carry out the project. The company aims to become one of the world's largest exporters of dragon fruits.
It's now time for us to check out the latest updates on today's weather forecast. This is the end of VTV News for this hour. Thank you very much for being here with us, and goodbye for now from Hanoi.